The esteemed actor Al Pacino, a figure synonymous with fierce intensity and unwavering self-possession, revealed a moment of profound vulnerability after listening to a soul-shaking message from Burkina Faso's President, Ibrahim Traoré. In that deeply affecting exchange, Pacino's voice fractured. His hands quivered, and he confessed, "I've never experienced anything like this." This is the story of that raw moment, the specific words that touched his core, his emotional collapse, and the reason this unforeseen connection has left the internet weeping. The television studio was abuzz with activity. Cameras gliding into position under the glare of bright lights. Al Pacino, the revered Hollywood legend, sat with his typical composed posture, a calm facade honed over a lifetime of discipline and fame. The audience anticipated his usual sharp commentary, sage wisdom, and perhaps a few well-timed jokes. But an expectant silence settled over the room when the host announced, "Joining us live via satellite from Burkina Faso is President Ibrahim Traoré." The large monitor flickered to life, revealing President Traoré, his gaze direct and his voice imbued with a quiet power. "Mr. Pacino," he started, "it is unlikely you know me, but I am familiar with the man you are. Not the celebrity, not the icon, but the human whose work has resonated in places you can scarcely conceive." Pacino blinked, clearly taken aback. His grip tightened on the arms of his chair. The audience shifted forward, sensing a departure from the ordinary Traoré's tone was heavy with significance. "Tonight, I am not here to discuss matters of state. I am here to pay tribute to a soul whose art has provided courage to those who have no voice." Pacino swallowed with difficulty. For the first time in many years on live television, a tightness constricted his chest. A premonition told him this was not a standard commendation. The audience remained in absolute stillness as Traoré went on. "When I was a boy," the president said with a soft voice, "we had very little. But one time, in a small dwelling, illuminated only by a single flickering lamp, I saw one of your performances. I could not comprehend all the English, but I understood. What was in your eyes? They communicated to me that a man must never relinquish his dignity, regardless of how deep the darkness becomes." Pacino's lips parted slightly, his breathing becoming shallow. The camera moved in for a close-up, revealing that his hands were now shaking. Traoré leaned nearer to his own camera. "Mr. Pacino, you taught me that strength is not found in cruelty, but in courage. You inspired a young boy in Africa to believe he could become a man who would stand for what is right." Audible gasps rippled through the onlookers. A glisten appeared in Pacino's eyes. He attempted to clear his throat, but his voice broke as he uttered a whisper. "You've never felt this way before." The studio erupted in applause, with some in the audience wiping tears from their faces. But President Traoré had more to say. He offered a gentle smile. "And tonight, I am returning the courage that you once offered me." For a man known across the globe for his composure, it was jarring to witness Al Pacino fighting to contain his tears. He pressed a hand to his face, shaking his head slowly as if to regain his balance. Ibrahim Pacino finally managed to say, his voice cracking, "I am at a loss for words. I have received many honors in my life, but nothing like this. Nothing." The president's response was quiet, almost reverent. "Then do not say anything, Mr. Pacino. Simply understand that you are cherished across oceans you have never seen." The studio audience burst into another round of applause, many now crying without restraint. The show's hosts exchanged glances, their prepared questions completely forgotten. Even the production crew stood motionless at the back, captivated by the moment. Pacino lowered his hand, his face wet with tears. "You have no idea what you've just done to me." Traoré's smile grew wider. "Oh, but I do, because you once did the same for me." The studio lights seemed to cast a warmer glow, the silence felt more profound, and the world watching understood that this was only the start of a week that would touch hearts everywhere. The studio was still electric when President Traoré's voice softened, becoming more personal. "Mr. Pacino," he said, "I can recall the very first time I saw you perform. I was just a child, sitting on a packed earth floor among other boys, watching a film projected by an old machine. You were unaware of our existence, yet your character's resilience gave us the fortitude to dream of a life beyond poverty. Pacino's chest heaved with emotion. He bowed his head, pressing a hand over his eyes as the camera focused on his trembling shoulders. "You must appreciate," Traoré continued, "that when the world seems to have forgotten you, the courage of even a stranger can be what keeps you going." Pacino eventually looked up, his tears shining in the light. His lips quivered as he whispered, "I never, never could have imagined this." The audience was silent, stifling their sobs. One of the co-hosts gently dabbed at her eyes. For the first time in decades, Al Pacino was not the actor or the legend. He was simply a man overcome by a profound truth. The following day, videos of the emotional exchange were the leading story on news outlets around the globe. But what the public had not yet witnessed was the message that awaited Pacino backstage. After the broadcast, an assistant presented him with a package secured with a simple wax seal from Burkina Faso. Inside, he found a folded piece of traditional fabric, the Faso d'Anfani, hand-woven by Burkinab women, along with a note penned in meticulous English. "To Mr. Pacino, your art served as a bridge for us when we had no path. We saw you not as an American, but as a brother in our shared struggle. Our president spoke tonight, but we were all standing with him. Thank you." Pacino's eyes filled with tears again as he clutched the cloth. This is beyond an honor," he breathed. He glanced at the cameras waiting for him outside and said softly, "The world believes I gave them movies, but I realize now they are the ones who gave me my life." The narrative was no longer about a simple tribute. It had transformed into a story of unity that spanned continents. On the third day of this remarkable week, Pacino came back to the studio. The hosts gently ribbed him about his emotional display, but he only smiled. Halfway through the program, the large screen illuminated once more. President Traoré had returned, and this time his words held an even greater gravity. "Mr. Pacino," Traoré started, "our children witnessed your tears, and they questioned why a man of strength would cry." Pacino leaned in, visibly affected. "I explained to them," Traoré went on, "that genuine strength is not about avoiding tears, but about caring so intensely that the world can feel your heart. And I made them a promise. One day you will visit Burkina Faso. You will see the faces of those you have inspired." The audience gasped collectively. Pacino covered his mouth with his hand, completely stunned. "Ibrahim," Traoré smiled with gentle warmth. "The invitation stands, and when you arrive, you will not be treated as a guest. You will be received as family." The studio erupted with a thunderous ovation. Pacino, unable to restrain his emotions, whispered through his tears, "I have never felt so human." That night, following the broadcast, Al Pacino sat by himself in his hotel room. The traditional cloth from Burkina Faso was folded neatly on his bed. Sleep eluded him. The president's words replayed in his mind, "You will not be a guest. You will be family." Abruptly, his phone buzzed with an international call. He answered with some hesitation. To his astonishment, President Traoré's warm voice greeted him. "Mr. Pacino, I trust I haven't disturbed you." Pacino managed a nervous chuckle. "I was awake." "I wanted you to listen to something," Traoré said. He held his phone out, and Pacino could hear the sound of children's laughter in the distance. "They are practicing a little song for you." "They insisted." Pacino listened as the children sang gently in the Moor language. Although he could not understand the lyrics, the innocence in their voices broke through his defenses. He covered his face with both hands as tears streamed freely. When the song concluded, Traoré said softly, "They wanted you to know that you already have a home here." For the first time in years, Pacino whispered, "I feel whole." The next morning, Pacino was at the studio earlier than usual. A producer handed him an envelope with unsteady handwriting on it. It contained a letter from a 12-year-old Burkina boy named Moussa. "Dear Mr. Pacino, I never imagined I would be writing to you. My father is a farmer. My mother sells bread. We do not have much, but when we see your films, we believe that we can be strong too. President Traoré says you cried. If a great man like you can show his tears, then perhaps I no longer have to be ashamed of mine. Thank you." Pacino's hands trembled as he absorbed the words. He pressed the letter to his chest, his eyes welling up. When the live broadcast commenced, Pacino held the letter. Looking directly at the camera, he said gently, "Moussa, if you are watching, I cried for you, and I am so proud of you." The studio fell silent. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, from the co-hosts to the crew operating the cameras. On the fifth day, the producers revealed a surprise. President Traoré would be appearing in person. The studio was filled beyond its limits, with every seat occupied and every space crowded with people eager to witness history. As Traoré stepped onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause. Pacino stood up slowly, his face already glistening with tears, and the two men shared a tight embrace. Traoré addressed the crowd. This week has demonstrated that art and truth recognize no boundaries, and I declare to all of you today, when Mr. Pacino visits Burkina Faso, it will not be as a visitor. It will be as a brother. Pacino, shaking, took the microphone. Ibrahim, you have given me something greater than an honor. You have given me family, and I give you my word, I will come. The room exploded with cheers and tears. Strangers embraced. Some wept without restraint. The world watching online felt the gravity of the moment. For Pacino, this was no longer about his filmography. It was about his legacy, about healing, and about a love that could cross oceans. Viewers around the world were tuned in, anticipating what felt like a historic occasion. Pacino's voice shook as he leaned into the microphone. Ibrahim, I have lived for decades in the public eye. I have portrayed kings, soldiers, even the devil himself. But I have never felt more humbled and never more human than I do sitting beside you. Traoré placed a reassuring hand on Pacino's shoulder. That is not humility, Mr. Pacino. That is greatness, the kind that embraces vulnerability. The audience quieted. Then Pacino admitted, his voice breaking, I've never felt this way before. A collective gasp went through the room, some people crying audibly. A man who had dedicated his life to controlling every motion, every word, was now completely undone. And it wasn't because of fame or accolades, it was because of truth. The internet ignited within minutes. Hashtags trended across the globe. Pacino Traoré, Ginhal Terzocrososians. People from every corner of the world posted, I never expected to cry watching Al Pacino. But for those present in the studio, the tears were only just beginning. After a brief commercial break, Traoré requested to share one final story. The audience leaned forward, sensing its importance. When I was a teenager, one evening we watched one of your films together. He turned to me and said, Son, men like that remind us that we are not invisible. Pacino's eyes widened, his hands beginning to tremble once more. Traoré paused, his own voice thick with emotion. My father is no longer with us, but I am certain he is watching us today, and he would be proud to know that the man who gave him strength now sits beside his son. The camera captured Pacino, closing his eyes, his face streaked with fresh tears. The studio was completely silent, save for the sound of muffled sobs from the audience. Pacino finally whispered, I wish I could have met him. Traoré smiled gently, but through me, you have met him. The audience rose for a standing ovation, some clapping through their tears, others embracing one another. As the applause subsided, President Traoré reached beneath his chair and retrieved a small, hand-carved wooden box. He set it down in front of Pacino. This, Traoré said softly, was crafted by children in Ouagadougou who asked me to bring it to you. They said give this to him, so he has something to hold when he forgets how much we love him. Pacino slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay a simple bracelet made of red and green beads, the colors of Burkina Faso's flag. The actor's lips quivered. He immediately slipped it onto his wrist, his tears falling onto the colorful beads. Glancing at the children's choir, which had been quietly waiting backstage, Pacino held up his hand to display the bracelet. I will never take this off, he said, his voice fractured. Never. The crowd erupted with cheers and sobs. Cameras flashed, but Pacino was not performing. He was experiencing one of the most unvarnished moments of his existence. And though the program was drawing to a close, the world understood that the most powerful chapter was yet to come. By the sixth day, the global conversation was dominated by Pacino and Traoré. News networks endlessly replayed their exchange, while social media was flooded with comments like, "This made me weep more than any film." But within the studio, Pacino was quietly coming apart. As the cameras filmed, he turned to Traoré and whispered so quietly the microphone could barely register it. "I don't know how to handle all this love. It's too much." Traoré looked him in the eye and responded with conviction. "You do not carry it, Mr. Pacino, you share it." At that instant, a young girl from Burkina Faso, secretly flown in for this surprise, walked onto the stage carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers. She looked up at Pacino, her hand shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. Pacino knelt down, his tears dampening her flowers as he hugged her. The audience dissolved into uncontrollable sobbing. Even the camera operators were wiping their eyes. Pacino looked up, whispering to Traoré, This is too much for a single heart." Traoré smiled. "Then let it be too much. The world needs this." Later that evening, the footage of Pacino embracing the little girl went viral. Across continents, strangers lit candles, held vigils, and posted messages of hope. In Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, thousands congregated in the main square. Huge screens replayed Pacino's trembling words. Children sang the same melody he had heard on the phone just days before. Back in the studio, Pacino sat in silence as Traoré handed him a tablet displaying a live stream of the gathering. Pacino gasped, covering his mouth. Speaking to the camera, he whispered, "To my brothers and my sisters in Burkina Faso, I see you and I love you." The crowd in Ouagadougou erupted into cheers and tears. The co-hosts sat in stunned silence, their scripts abandoned. A veteran actor, a president, and an entire nation were now connected, not by politics, but by love and humanity. And still, the most powerful moment was yet to be witnessed by the world. On the seventh day, the studio could hardly contain the attendees. Journalists, fans, and dignitaries filled every available space. Traoré stood, his voice calm yet commanding. "This week has taught us that even the strongest among us can cry, and even the most distant can feel near. Today, I wish to ask Mr. Pacino one question. A question on behalf of my people." Pacino, visibly trembling, nodded. "Ask me." Traoré leaned forward. "Will you come to Burkina Faso?" The crowd held its breath in a collective gasp. Pacino closed his eyes, his lips trembling. Then he rose to his feet, lifting the bracelet high. "Yes," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Yes, I will come." The room exploded. People cried, clapped, and shouted with joy. Some fell to their knees in prayer, others embraced strangers. Pacino wept openly, his face buried in his hands. "I've never felt this way before," he repeated, shaking his head. Traoré embraced him, whispering, "Then let the world feel it with you." It was the moment the internet would dub the tears heard around the world. On the morning of the seventh day, the studio was filled with a silence that felt heavy with meaning. Al Pacino entered, wearing the same bracelet the Burkinab children had given him. He had not removed it once. President Traoré stood waiting. "Mr. Pacino," he said gently, "the world is now familiar with your tears. But today, they must be familiar with your promise." Pacino's voice cracked as he replied, "Ibrahim, I have spent my life inhabiting other men. But this week I discovered who I truly am. I will not let this moment fade. I will come to Burkina Faso." The audience erupted, some sobbing, some applauding uncontrollably. The camera zoomed in as Pacino's trembling hands wiped his face. Traoré leaned in close. "Our people are already making preparations to welcome you. You will not be walking among strangers, but among your family." The actor's lips quivered. "I feel as though I have been waiting for this my entire life." The applause thundered as the world understood this was more than a pledge. It was history in the making. That evening, Burkina Faso's national television network broadcast the footage of Pacino's vow. In villages and cities, families huddled around old televisions and mobile phones, tears streaming down their faces as they watched the Hollywood icon promise to set foot on their soil. Children chanted Pacino's name. Women sang songs of welcome. Elders clasped their hands in prayer. Back in the studio, Traoré turned to Pacino. "Can you hear them?" Through a live audio feed, the sound of thousands of Burkinabe voices chanting Pacino's name filled the studio. The actor buried his face in his hands, shaking. I do not deserve this," Pacino whispered. Traoré placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "This is not about deserving. This is about sharing. You gave us hope without realizing it. Now, we give you love without measure." Pacino looked at the camera through tear-filled eyes. "Then I will come not as an actor, but as a brother." The audience roared with emotion. Around the world, people wept, sending messages of love. The internet didn't just explode, it wept in unison. The final moments of the broadcast felt like a sacred silence. Pacino and Traoré stood together, holding hands as the co-hosts wiped away their own tears. Pacino raised his voice, though it shook with emotion. "I have spent decades pursuing awards, applause, and roles, but none of it can compare to what I have discovered this week: truth, love, and a family I never knew I possessed." The camera moved in close as his tears fell without restraint. "To the people of Burkina Faso, I am coming. And when I arrive, I will walk with you, cry with you, and laugh with you. From this day forward, you are in my heart forever." Traoré embraced him tightly. "And you are in ours." The studio exploded into standing ovations. Around the world, millions wept. This was no longer just a moment on television. It was a bond that transcended oceans and history itself. And as the credits rolled, the global community agreed. It was one of the most emotionally resonant live broadcasts in modern times. Now, to everyone watching, if this narrative moved your heart, if it made you feel, weep, or believe in the power of love and unity once more, please do not remain a silent observer. We invite you to subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share your own feelings in the comments section below. Let us know which moment touched you most deeply. Your engagement and support are what allow stories like this one to continue to be told.